the Roadshow Podcast.
Dude, what the fuck? Where the hell? How have I not heard of you? Like, musically. You've done so much big shit.
Like you said, I've been pretty under the radar. I've had hiatuses here and there, but for the most part, I come back to music every couple of years and do my thing, and then maybe I'll try doing something else for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So I've been in and out of either the education space or doing the music artist thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So how'd you get started?
I started back in high school. I was selling mixtapes of my shitty mixtape on a CD to people at recess because I just got into DJing. I was only into hip hop, like rap. This is like, Kanye West era homework kind of stuff, like 2010.
Sick.
So I was selling mixtapes of all that kind of stuff mixed in with a lot of commercial music, and I was playing like my friends' parties and whatnot. And I came across this video on YouTube of deadmau5 because it came up in a suggested video after I just discovered what Daft Punk was. And coming up to the point where I've never heard anything electronic before, it was just strictly hip hop and metal bands. And the suggested video was this clip of deadmau5 playing in front of this massive cathedral-like venue, Hard Haunted Mansion it was called, in the States. And I've never seen a DJ play any kind of electronic music before, keep in mind. I'd only seen DJ Jazzy Jeff, and he was like a hip-hop scratcher kind of guy.
So your first leap was deadmau5?
Yeah, that was my way in. And I saw he had so much influence over so many people through what he was creating, and I wasn't aware that people could just make that kind of music. And I was instantly like, wow, this guy, plays a song and the whole like Coliseum like venue lights up. Sick. And all these people are just going nuts in unison. I've never seen at that moment, I hadn't seen anything quite like it. So I was just so interested in how did this guy get to where he is? Like, what did he do to get to that point? And I realized it wasn't through DJing, obviously. It was something else, and it was writing production. So at the moment, I was this little ADHD kid in high school who had zero passions or interests or anything. And this was the first thing where I had tunnel-like focus, the first time in my life being like, what is this thing? What is this passion that people are after, this career? Mm-hmm. And so I went all in on researching when I was meant to be studying and just trying to figure out how to do the thing. And when I was meant to be studying, I was just every night I was trying to learn how to produce or how to obtain certain software and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then after doing that for a little while, I started trying to enter the Perth scene and, did that locally for a little bit. But when I started to actually put out my music, I got picked up pretty quickly by Triple J, and they did this, I think it was around 2013, they did this top 10 artists to look out for. And it was Just the Gent, Yartzel, LW, me, and a couple of other artists. And when they do that article, I don't think they do it anymore, but when they did do that, pretty much everyone on that roster of the top 10 would get hit up by every, major management or booking agency and whatnot. So I had offers from pretty much anybody that I wanted to work with in Australia at that point. And Sony Australia, they were just doing a sub label at the time called Basic Records, which was like a sub new label. They were trying to basically do like the progressive house thing in Australia. Yeah. Because it was so big in, Europe and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So they picked me up as one of their new artists, and I signed to Sony for that. Then realizing that after I went on tour in Asia, I was still only like 20 and I wasn't really ready for that kind of thing.
In what way?
Sorry?
In what way?
Well, the mental thing. Like I was still a super introvert. I was super anxious. I couldn't even look up when I was DJing.
Whoa.
I was just like this the whole time. So all of a sudden I'm playing internationally. I've only been, doing it for a little bit, for maybe a year and a bit. And I just realized like I completely burnt out and broke down on that tour. Like I had my friends with me and I was meant to play this big show, and I was like hiding in this temple right next to this venue, hoping the promoters don't see how drunk I was because I was vomiting and stuff. They'd paid all this money to get me over there. Yeah. And I was thinking, shit, I don't think I'm going to be able to play.
So then, were you drinking to get over the nerves and everything that was happening?
Yeah. Well, also I'd met this other DJ there who was like a big artist there at the time. He was like this is in Kuala Lumpur, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he was like a really big signature artist there. And his name was Mr. Flufftown because he played this...
What's Flufftown?
Well, he got me drunk as fuck, basically. Because he was like, we play this game here called Drink. And it was literally just that. It's so stupid. It's like every 5 seconds we're having a little chat and you just have a little sip. But it's like a lot of alcohol over a very short amount of time. So before I knew it, we had already finished like 80% of this bottle.
Holy shit.
So it was just like, have a general chat like this, drink.
So as soon as somebody says it,
Yeah, it was just
drink.
every like 10 seconds almost. And before you know it, I was fucked. Yeah. So I was behind this temple hiding. My friends found me, and then
Were you hiding or were you passed out?
I was definitely hiding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
I was
right.
first hiding in the toilet, and then the guards were like, "You can't be in here. Like, what are you doing? There's only one stall." So I had to get out.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So I then hid outside, hoping nobody could see me, and because I didn't want to get in trouble. And then my friends found me. Unfortunately, they nursed me back to health with a bunch of greasy food, and then I was able to play just in time. But after that experience, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready for this. I'm going to take some time and just build myself, do, you know, personal life things for a bit. And then I came back doing more bass music stuff, because back then I was doing like progressive house, like cheesy Tomorrowland music, because that was all the rage back then.
Right.
And I came back doing dubstep, trap, drum and bass, that kind of stuff. And I had a few decent wins, but it wasn't until I had my fair share experiences of some bad managers. And after experiencing that, I was like, this can't be it. Like, there has to be some other way to cut through the glass. Like, how do I get to the top? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I knew my music was good and my taste was good, but there was just, I didn't have the resources or the know-how to create opportunities for myself. And I started getting really into marketing because I wanted to just do this myself, and I was sick of depending on other people. And I ended up figuring out how to actually create opportunities just based on email pitching. Like, I got really good at email pitching.
Really?
And how I signed to my first label, Circus Records, is I did that exact strategy where I first of all, I put out this bootlegged remix of a Flux Pavilion and Nightmare song. So anytime when two major artists from different labels or different niches, genres, collaborate, oftentimes that is a big event, and a lot of the labels end up putting out like a remix bundle to go with it, to like keep it going, the hype. And so I knew this, and I thought, well, if I remix this song before anybody else, like unofficially, so I just grabbed the MP3 WAV file and then just edited it my own and did my own take on it. I knew that if I did that before anybody else, I would get way more attention, because a lot of people were doing this around this time and doing free downloads to get more viewers and followers that way. And I also noticed that Proximity, which is a massive YouTube channel, they uploaded the original song, and I thought, oh, well, by association, they would have obviously worked with the original team if they uploaded the original, like the premiere, because whenever a song comes out, there's two models of promoting through blogs and YouTube channels. It's either a premiere or an exclusive.
Right.
So exclusive means like they are the only ones who get to upload it and post about it, obviously. Premieres if they're the first people to get to post about it. And so they premiered it on this YouTube channel. So I thought, okay, well, they've obviously worked with the original team. And just on a whim, I was like, fuck it. I'll just reach out to their demo submission, because they're also a label.
Right.
And so instead of just trying to email them directly, I was like, maybe I'll just try through this because it's different. And I reached out personally through that demo submission, which they would get thousands of emails through that, by the way. And I just said, hey, Blake, the owner, I know you don't usually upload unofficial stuff, but considering you work with the original team, perhaps if you like this remix, you could get permission to upload it. Curious to your thoughts. And all I was asking for was getting him to see if he liked it, he could then ask them for permission to upload it if he liked it. So I wasn't asking for anything more than that. And so this guy then went out of his way to then submit that to Nightmare's team, who then sent it to Flux Pavilion's team, who then sent it to Circus. And then Circus emailed me going, hey, we heard your remix, we'd love to get it contracted up and signed.
Nice.
And so that got me through the door. And then Blake then emailed me saying, hey, I sent your remix off to Circus. I heard they're signing it. Congrats. I'd love to offer you some more remixes. And so this was the starting point of where I was like, oh, I did this by myself. Why do I need a manager anymore? Like, I still had a manager at the time. And then I told him, I was like, I did this, like, without telling him. And I landed all this stuff. And I was like, what should we do now? And, you know, he gave some good advice here and there, but I needed someone that was as, like, diligent as me at just doing the thing when it needed to be done. And I realized I could only depend on myself in that situation.
Whoa.
So I ended up walking away from management and just did my own thing for a bit. I was like, I'm going to just do my own thing and build up as much leverage as I can, so then I can work with a high tier artist manager. So after I landed that label signing with the remix, I then got offered to do another EP with them, or 2 EPs. Did all that, and I was getting a lot of artist support, other artists, bigger artists playing my music out and building up all this hype around the brand. And the next thing that I really wanted to get was booking agencies and management. And those are like the two main things that every artist wants to get. It's either a booking agent to get more shows, tour internationally, or it's artist management. And artist management can mean a lot of things, but most of the time it's just managing the music. Sometimes it's also the business side of like, you know, organizing
Promotion.
where the monetization, merch, all the business stuff as well, logistics. But for the most part, it's just getting your music out there, handling it, and figuring out a strategy to schedule it all out. And obviously to motivate the client as well. And in order for me to get the management I always wanted to get with, I was like, I need to develop as much leverage as possible. Like I need to demonstrate that I'm at that caliber already. And so after I signed with Circus, like this is essentially how I then got into the education side, because I realized all these methodologies that I created ended up being translatable to other people.
Okay.
But I'll get to that in a sec. So in order to get the management I wanted to, I was like, I need to have some kind of association that's to do with the management. So if I'm working with the same people that they're working with, my name's going to come up a lot in the office. So by association. So I first of all realized that Circus Records, they worked very closely with a Europe agency, and I was in no position to do Europe shows anytime soon. I had no following there, but I knew that getting that would look really good on the resume, and also that it's associated with the management. So I reached out to Circus. I was like, hey, can you intro me to this Europe agency so we can get me on Europe bookings? They did that. That happened. And then I was like, okay, well, now that I have that, what is associated with this Europe agency that's also in Australia for bookings? So there was a Australian booking agency that worked closely with them. So I then got them on board. Because I was like, I'm demonstrating already that I got those two things on my own. Imagine what happens if I work with you. That was the kind of frame up I would do. And then once I had the Australian agency, Europe agency, and the label, I was like, okay, time to actually go for the US management that I've always wanted to. And so I always wanted to get signed to this management agency called 24/8 because I was a huge idol of Hero Bus. He's like, at the time, he was my favorite sound designer. He made the most insane stuff. It's like hybrid trap stuff. It's like very hip hoppy, but it's like very experimental at the same time.
I'm pretty sure Jason Joshua's worked with him, right?
Sorry, who?
Jason Joshua. He's an 8-time Grammy Award-winning hip-hop producer.
Maybe like co-written some stuff, possibly.
I think they've worked together before.
Possibly, yeah. I'm not too familiar with the hip-hop space, but very likely. He's a very hip-hop guy.
What was your door of choice when you first started?
It was Logic originally.
Okay,
Logic
right.
Pro, yeah.
This seems like an awesome progression. Are you at Pro Tools now?
I'm on Ableton now, so
what? Everybody's on Ableton now.
It was a needed switch up because you can only do so much in Logic.
Yeah,
it's not very optimized for speed and efficiency.
It's made for dum-dums.
Yeah,
which is I don't like hating on other people, but if you use Logic, you can only do so much. Like I use FL Studio, as you can tell.
Yeah,
and like all my production, even my music production's done on there. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's. As long as somebody really understands their DAW, I know it sounds cliched, but I think FL and Ableton are the best ones just because they're very efficient, like with speed. And I think speed is the most important factor when you're trying to be a producer.
Yes.
Like hip hop producers, like you've mentioned, they're probably the best at speed. Like they write beats in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen that happen as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So when you had this momentum starting with the shows and say like you went international, did you think that it was going to get to the point that you were going to be doing the Europe thing prior to it actually happening, or did you think you were going to have those link ups just by luck, or were they premeditated?
It kind of happened in the moment. Like I had no plan at the very start that those things were going to happen, but I always based it on association. So whenever I land an opportunity, or it's the same if I'm working with a client, if they want to get a certain thing, we just find something that is connected to that in some way, and then build the association from that. Because, well, artist managers, booking agents, label A&Rs, 9 times out of 10, they're not music producers, so they can't quantify how good somebody actually is.
Yes.
So it's just opinions, really. But if you have some point of leverage, like, you know, if somebody is getting played by somebody massive, you're automatically going to be like, oh, he must be that good. Like it eliminates any skepticism somebody has of where somebody sits in terms of quality. Yeah,
because all the gatekeepers, that's all like subjective taste, really, of like who they pull up, and they go off of who. Well, I think that's probably why social media is good now, is because you can test the waters before you blow someone up, or like you sign someone. Like that guy Oliver Anthony. Did you see his? He had that country song about politicians should look out for minors. It's a great song, and it went completely viral. But he was trying to get signed for 10 odd years, right? And then he puts this one song out and it goes fucking viral as fuck, and then everybody wanted him. So now that there's this like segregation, but I see where management is needed for people that want to come up in just like the industry way, which is probably the most efficient way to come up, instead of just like throwing monkeys in a barrel, you know?
Absolutely. And it's just in the example you said, it's essentially hype, right? Like, and we ask ourselves, what is hype? Hype isn't how good somebody is, it's how good people think you are at a short time frame. So if somebody gets that virality in a very short time, that's when everyone's like, oh, who is this person? Where'd they come from? How are they doing all this? Their music's so good. You know, if you had a good career over, 10 years, sub good career over 10 years, it's not going to be the same impact as somebody within, a week where they have an insane amount of traction, right?
Yeah. Hawk too.
Exactly.
Exactly, right.
Like the viral stuff is everything.
It's everything.
And even, those memers, those people that get put in the memes, they themselves end up having careers based off of those trajectories as well.
Which is sad because like if you're living your life off making somebody laugh in 2008, I think that's probably why Logan Paul and Jake Paul are doing so well. Well, I don't like them, but they're doing very well because of how they were able to continue to morph into these different things that their careers required them to morph into, which is wild because they were doing splits on trains in 2002, and then after all that shit, like they dabbled in music and it was fucking shit, like it was pretty bad, and then they were like, well, we're known as the dickheads, so let's be the dickheads. And they've made massive amounts of money off of it. Now when you signed to the 24A, did you say, or 24 management?
24A.
24A. How did you get in the door there? What was the thing that linked you to that?
So I originally reached out to their main manager at the time, Dexter, and I said, hey, this is the kind of music I'm making. I just signed this EP to Circus. Curious to hear your thoughts. And his response straight away was that, hey, like, got too much on my plate. I wasn't really asking for anything. I was just asking for like his thoughts on my music, which obviously I'm implying something, and he knew that. And he said, I don't have much time. And something that I noticed right away is because I use a Gmail tracker to check if somebody actually clicks my links, because if somebody didn't click the link, how could they have listened to what you sent them, right?
Yes.
So he didn't click the link, so I was like, well, obviously he didn't listen to it, so there must be something in what I said that didn't encourage him to actually click on the link. And I was like, it's because I don't have any proof of concept. Like, I don't have any proof in the email that shows I'm good enough to his caliber. So I realized I needed to get some kind of artist support. And at the time, I didn't really have anything major because my first EP was just about to come out. And so it was about 2 months later, I actually found out that one of his main clients, which was my idol, Hero Bust, was one of the artists that started playing out my music. And so I immediately was like, okay, like that's weird, because at the start of this entire process of wanting to get with them, I'd signed up to their weekly email newsletter as like a memento of like, this is what I want to achieve, however long it takes. And it just had like updates on what their clients are doing. It wasn't anything special, whatever, but that was a reminder constantly. And when I found out that I'd got that artist support, I then reached out to Dexter again and I said, hey, look, I've just found out that Hero Bust has been playing out those songs that I sent. Just wanted to fill in the gaps of what's happened since we last spoke. And then he clicked on the link and said, he's like, oh, that's awesome, dope. Like, and I'd followed up the conversation saying, hey, could you introduce me to the videographer that had filmed, because I saw it actually come up in my newsfeed on, he's like playing on one of his tours, playing the song for like 5 seconds in the video, and I caught it. And I didn't really care about the video footage, but I intentionally asked him to intro me because I wanted the conversation going and I wanted them to keep talking about me in the office, because that's what hype is, right? It's just getting that, traction going in a short amount of time.
Your name in people's mouths, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't realize this, like you can land a lot of things if you're smart about this strategy. And I then proceeded to reach out to every single person that was associated with them, that agency. So the people that worked in the office, their PR people, I was adding them all on socials, following them on Instagram. I was DMing all their artists and sending them music to try and get artist support that way as well. So I got a couple and whatever. Then it was about 6 or 8 months later, probably about 6 months later, I found out that Hero Boss was playing in my city. and in Perth, in it was at Metro City. It was like the last basement they ever did.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and it was like a week before that, I get an email from their management, from a different manager, saying, "Hey, your name's been coming up in the office a lot. We'd love to offer you representation. Curious to hear your thoughts if you're interested." And so I said yes, obviously, jumped on the call with him. And the first thing I asked him was, "How did you find out about me?" And he goes, "Weirdly enough, it was from 10 different people in the same week, like in person."
Oh,
so it was because of all the, people I was messaging and DMing. When he was asking about who's a new client they should bring on, my name must have just came up by every person he asked, coincidentally, because I've been DMing the shit out of everybody and following people. So it's that association. And then once we got the deal going and we signed the contract, I said, "Oh, well, Herebus is playing next week, like in my city. Could you, intro us or get me backstage?" So they got me AAA. I was backstage and I met Herebus and I was like, "Hey, like I made that song Vermin, the song that you play in your sets." And he's like, "Oh, dude, that's one of the most well-engineered songs I've ever heard." And I was like,
"Oh,
bruh, like my idol saying this." I couldn't handle the compliment. I was like, no, you're the greatest. No,
shucks.
You're good. Yeah, it was literally like that, full fangirling. And I then went on stage and he played the song. And the full circle moment was that at the start of the year, I signed up to that newsletter to remind myself of where I wanted to be. And then, 8-9 months later, I'm not only signed to the agency, but Herebus is playing the music, but I'm also on stage while he's playing it, while the videographer that I was trying to get footage of is now filming us.
Whoa.
So everything was full circle.
Whoa.
Like that whole process just combined.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
And that's why I hate the whole manifestation thing, but sometimes these things happen that I just can't put it into like a logical perspective.
Yes.
Like it's just such a weird coincidence that everything fell into place. Like obviously there was a lot of hard work, but from my perspective back then a year ago, it just seems like unimaginable.
Yeah. Well, I think a manifestation isn't anything without action. Action. Maybe. But it's almost like an infinite game of chess with circumstance. Like you're playing your pieces and you're playing against nobody. But if you put the piece in a certain position, something might line up. The next move might be in your favor. And it seems like you've done that again and again and again.
I agree. You can't manifest from your couch.
No, you cannot. No, unless you got a fucking sweet couch.
Yeah.
It's a casting couch.
Well, that's true. Very true. Yeah.
So I wanted to get into the story about Elon Musk and how it came about. What was the song? I'll let you tell it, the whole story, how you came up with the production and everything for that track.
So that track Overlord was a collaboration with Code Pandorum, and he's this guy that he wears like a mask that's like very like metal looking kind of mask, like what you would see in Slaughter to Prevail kind of thing. Like he's very inspired by Alex the Terrible, for example. So I think he has tracks with him as well, apparently. But yeah.
What?
Yeah, like unreleased, but yeah, they work together and whatnot.
Crazy.
Yeah. So Code Pandorum is like very hype for his niche of like Tear Out, which is like a heavy as fuck version of dubstep. It's like very inspired by metal, like core.
That's like Extra Terror, right?
I think so. Yeah. And we did this collaboration just as he was changing his alias to something more mid-tempo, which is like Rez's kind of music. So it's like 4/4 kick drums, like just slow, grungy kind of stuff. And we put out this song on his label and it did okay, got like, a couple thousand views and whatever, like as expected. But we did not expect anything remotely close to this. Like I was just going through getting into like sync licensing, which is when you want your stuff played on like video games, movies, adverts, TV shows, etc. Essentially, you'll upload it to a distributor and they will send it out to all big brands. And if any of the big brands need music for any kind of licensing work, like the examples I said, then they will use it for a fee. Now, because I was working with a really small tier one, which was basically like a subscription kind of basis where I paid an XYZ amount and then they would put my stuff out there, then I would get a cut of that percentage. And I was only getting a couple of hundred from a lot of these deals. And I found out from a message to my Facebook page, somebody was like, "Oh, I just saw your music on this Tesla thing with Elon Musk. Congrats." And I was like, this guy's spamming me. Like, this guy's a bot, clearly. Like, what is he talking about? And then he linked me it. and it was like an S Plaid event that goes for like an hour, and I'm like, I'm not watching this. And he's like, gave me the timestamp, like, trust me. And I skipped to that point, and I'm just saying they're demonstrating the entire intro, like, showcase of what the car looks like on the inside of the S Plaid model, and then showing it racing around a track, and it's playing like a music video, like a brand new car kind of thing. And it turns out it was like a live event, and Elon Musk is then getting out of the car as it drives up on stage. He then gets out, my music is still playing, and then he gets on the mic and it fades out. And I was super drunk when I was watching this, because it was like Saturday night at 2 a.m. on a bender, and I was just thinking, this is some bullshit. And I'm showing it to my friends, like, is this real? Like, this can't be real.
What?
And the craziest thing is that I had this weird as fuck dream about Elon Musk like a week before that.
Right.
And I don't often have dreams about Elon Musk, just to state that. It was just a one-off kind of thing. And in the dream, me and him are best friends. And I was hanging on his couch with Elon Musk, and we're drinking. And he's like, his wife Grimes at the time was in the kitchen, and he goes, Jackson, go and get the $1 billion champagne from the fridge outside. And then I go outside and open up this mini bar fridge, and then there's like another whole mansion inside of it. And then I get lost for too long, and then I come back with the $1 billion champagne. He's unfriended me from Facebook and Life. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, that was fucking cooked. But then, you know, a week later that happened, and I thought that was very strange as well, the proximity of those two things. Yeah, dreams are crazy.
I'm going to try and AI create that story right there in
I'd
the video.
love to see that. Yeah.
That's sick, dude. So was there anything else that came from that, or was it just like that wow moment, or did you get noticed in other ways from that same thing? Or
there was definitely a lot of hype that came from that, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of bigger artists started noticing me. But for me, it was the peak of things I could achieve. Like getting recognized on that level that was beyond my niche. Because making bass music, it's great and it's big, and there's like massive festivals around the world, and there's big artists and everything. But there's only so far you can get before it gets to the mainstream.
Yes.
Like that's the other tier. Like that's where, you know, David Guetta and stuff are at, you know. And I felt like achieving something like that was like a slight hint towards that. And I feel like I was very satisfied with that moment. I was like, okay, like I feel like I've done like a lot of big things, but that was definitely the biggest kind of thing I achieved. Just seeing something where, like, I know everyone knows Elon Musk, and seeing my music in the same in the same clip as him, I was like, whoa,
that is wild.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
crazy.
I was very satisfied with that. It's definitely a career moment.
So what is your highest career moment other than that?
Probably achieving the management thing with HeroBus, because the strategy that I came up with actually works. Like putting something into practice that you're just theorizing, and then it actually works and actually pays off in a big way. All the hard work.
Yes.
That was definitely a full circle, fulfilling moment of my career. I think the only other thing that was worth mentioning was seeing David Guetta play one of my songs at a festival, like EDC or something. But seeing him play dubstep was extremely strange. Yeah. Like, who knows if that's pre-recorded or anything like that, because
Definitely would be.
Yeah. I think what definitely does happen though is that he has a team that finds music for him to like make mashups and edits.
Yes.
Because there's no way that he went through like underground dubstep, found my song, and then mashed it with like another song.
Right. So David Guetta played your song? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Did I just hear that right?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
A lot of these big room guys, like even Martin Garrix, sometimes they're playing drum and bass now, which is super strange.
Right.
Yeah. I'm all for it though.
I think there's also a crossover between drum and bass right now with dubstep as well, where everyone's seeing the hype of like Lude and all these other guys like Headaches and shit. Like Don Darko and Blackout, they're over in Europe at the moment and they're having a great time. Everywhere seems to be blowing up. But if you were thinking about dubstep and stuff, like, do you remember Amber? dude, like that was like #1 club in the country for dubstep, and like who the fuck was playing there? You know, like they had guys coming in from Europe and all sorts of shit, but the crowd was limited, but it was always packed. But now you're seeing it like branch out, and all these niches are becoming their own mainstream, where mainstream doesn't have to be mainstream anymore. Their mainstream can be within your own genre, because everyone niches out on subgenres, and then you get a subgenre that mainstreams on its own, and then they have other artists, and it's very, very cool. It's very cool. I don't like what country's doing right now, but we won't talk about that. So where you're at now, how did you link up with Brandon Willington? Like, because I've known Brandon for 4 or 5 years now. And we used to party together back in the day, and he turned his life around when he started the online Facebook marketing and all that. And I just seen him go level. And now you guys have done industry set together. Tell me the story.
So we met probably like 10 years ago, and it was at a gig that me and him both got booked for. This guy who was new to doing events, he booked this show that had artists from like different nightclubs. So there was artists from like DJs from Amber, from Shape, from Capital, where he was from, and he was just getting everyone to do duos based on like where they were from.
Right.
So it was like nightclub versus nightclub kind of thing.
Okay, that's cool.
And I was paired up against Brandon, and Brandon rocked up, and you know, me and him were both like super young still. I was in my early 20s, and I think he was only maybe like 19 or something, and his laptop wasn't working, so we couldn't even do the back-to-back. Like, it wouldn't sync up to the CDJs, and he was super hungover on brand. And then as we were both leaving at the end, like I'd finished the set by myself, and this guy who'd booked us, he like huddled us together, and he's like, I don't know what it is about you two, but you two are meant to do something special together. And we were both like, yeah, okay. You know, when like your parents or something say, oh, like you're going to do this one day. You're like, yeah, whatever. It was kind of like that. I was like, yeah, whatever, bro. And he was totally right, because we built so many things together since then. Over the last 10 years, we first built our first business together, and that was like a music marketing kind of ads course thingy. And how that happened was I hit him up out of the blue. Like, I had him on Facebook, and I saw he posts a lot of like marketing kind of videos. Like, he was very good at what he does. Like, he understands social media. Like, he has the it factor for it. And I could see that. And I hit him up over Skype, and I was like, you know, like, I have this idea I want to pitch to you. And I told him about how I just discovered like Facebook ads and funnels and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, we could make like a music marketing course. Like, nobody's really doing this. Like, this is a new thing. And he's like, oh, I'm all board. And we paid for we didn't pay for it. You signed up to this free trial for this software. It was like a website funnel thing, and it teaches you how to basically sell a product, and you have all these resources on there, like videos and like assets and whatever. And we had the free trial. We didn't even have the money to pay for it, because I think it was like $200. And we were like, we have to sell a course by the end of before the free trial ends to like cover our bases.
Oh, wow.
And so we had launched this product. We hadn't even finished the product. We only did the first week. So it's like we could sell the whole 10-week, 6-week, whatever program with only the first week done. And then as people are completing the first week, we can complete the rest.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that sunken cost fallacy of like, oh, if this doesn't sell, damn. So we'd only finished the first week. We went on to doing a couple of calls to like sell it to some people, and we got like a couple of sales, and we were like, oh, holy shit, like we've actually covered the free trial subscription off the first couple of days. I'm like, we can actually do something with this. Like, we can actually like maybe survive off this. Whoa. And we were still doing like our local DJ gigs and whatnot, but this was becoming something where we were like, this is way more fun, like teaching people. And that only lasted for about a year or so. It was called Sound District. And
that was the university, right? Like, you guys considered a university?
No, it wasn't. It was just like an online course, but
okay.
We just kind of branded it as like a Sound District thing.
Okay.
And yeah, Brandon kind of got sick of the music industry at that point. I think it was around the time where he stopped producing as well. He was like, I'm not all about this anymore. And I was like, fair enough. He went his way and started getting more corporate with like running an ads agency, which he still runs to this day, like Where You, it's massive. And then I kept doing the traditional route of like online schooling, which was what we kind of originally did. So I started doing like other types of online schools. And during the peak of COVID, I then built like a massive school. It was like 1,800 students all paying like monthly. And that was like the pivot, like the main peak of my education, but it was just working me to death. and it wasn't worth the amount of effort that I was putting in. Like, it just wasn't feasible. So, and also my business partner was a complete jerk. So fortunately I got out of that, took a long break, and then came back and reconnected with Brandon. And that's when we're like, fuck it, let's do another one. And so that's how Industry Set got built.
Okay. So what does Industry Set do? Like, I understand everything that you've just said, but obviously there's something different that has the attention of all these people that you're working with. It's already up and running, correct?
Yeah.
What's the fundamentals?
So the difference now is that this is one-on-one coaching, but we custom tailor it to somebody's needs. Because general curriculums, like any schooling, what they do is they chuck you in a curriculum where you learn the same thing as every other person.
Yes.
So for example, if let's say you're starting out in production and maybe you've got a year or two experience and they're like, oh, well, week 1, we're going to learn EQ, and week 2, we're going to learn compression. But it's like, what if you already know that? Why should you have to learn that all over again? It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your money. So instead, what we do is we just focus on what somebody's bottlenecks are, what their weaknesses are, and then just tailor everything around that.
So they let you know what their weaknesses are, or do you do like a comprehensive overlook?
Yeah, so I do the assessment and find out what the reoccurring problems are, and then base everything around that. And that's how we can get really, really good results, because we're no longer basing it on, just getting somebody through the door and getting them to complete a curriculum. Instead, we're going to get you a really good result because we grow based on results.
Yes.
So what we do is we get somebody a really good result, we post them online, people see them and they go, I want that result too. And then they book in to try and join and they apply. So it's a win-win scenario. And I think it's a great business model because I just have to get somebody a really, really good result, and we just have to make sure we bring on people that fit the criteria that we could get a result.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, because a lot of people just have that the same course for everyone. And I think that when I tried a couple of marketing courses, and there were just those fake fucking gurus that just like, this is the course, and then I'd ask a question that was a little bit off topic, and they just weren't like, that's not what we're handling. But if you guys have a spread of what you guys have already done, you know how to handle certain situations and where the next progression is, that's awesome and very commendable. Does this go into every single genre? Can you help all artists?
The only artist we don't help are country and hip hop, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Sick. But like for like a singer, like a standalone artist.
True, we don't do that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I could help a vocalist, and I've had a vocalist client before, but it's just not my expertise. So I'd rather only bring on people that I know I can get a really, really good result.
So like DJs?
Driven. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so
sick.
That is the niche. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you teaching them on Ableton?
Mostly, that's the preferred one for sure.
Yeah.
Because I find most of our instructors, because we have a couple of coaches now, and myself included, we're all using it. So it makes sense that if somebody comes along and is also using Ableton, they're probably going to get the most out of this.
Yeah. What if they come with like, no, I'm sticking to GarageBand, dude?
Well, they're very limited by, if they're using like subpar resources, then they're going to get a subpar result. But if somebody's using FL, that's totally fine. But if somebody's using Logic, I still strongly try to convince them, like, hey, like, maybe you should use this free trial of Ableton and see what it's like. Because the benefits are going to be far exceeding what they're using. Ableton
pushed hard a couple of years ago. I think it was like during pandemic, they were giving free Ableton to everyone. I remember buying like what is it called? An Alice's, the 25 MIDI rather. And they gave me free Ableton with that. And Crazy. It was like $100.
Was it lifetime free?
Lifetime free.
Damn, that's
yeah.
amazing.
Which is fucking wild. They pushed hard, and I can see like how it benefited everyone. When you were doing your remixes, like back in the day, you were pulling WAV files, but were you splitting the WAV file, or were you just keeping it as a whole and then editing as like one wave?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would just cut up the parts that are actually usable. So for example, if you've got a drop of a song that has drums in it that are going over the top of the synths, you can't use that. You can't go over the top of that. However, there's going to be some songs where there'll be breaks within the drop where there won't be any drums, and it will have like just a synth hit in here and there. So you can cut those bits out and reuse them and maybe resample them and use them in a weird way. And that way you can do whatever you want with the song and it will still sound cohesive because you're using bits and pieces like that. The only other thing that I wouldn't change would be the breakdown and the intros. Like I would keep them the same, and I'd maybe just add another progression on top of it, like a counter melody that complements it.
Right. And
just to mask the original vocal, because if you are using the original vocal in a song that you're trying to remix, often you'll get a copyright infringement. But if
Yeah.
you mask it perfectly with some other melody on top and, you know, you do some EQ to it, it will bypass it.
Right. That's a good point. Because I come across that quite a bit. That whenever I show a video, I'll show the video on YouTube. I'll show the video, but I'll cut the sound out, and it'll just be the sound playing from like the laptop or something. I can put the sound in, but then I get a copyright infringement. And I think it's the microphone picking up the sound kind of like muffles it a little bit, so it can't detect it. It's strange how all the copyright stuff works, because of like you have all the AI stuff that came out where like you can take somebody's voice and change it to somebody else's voice, and then there was copyright infringement, like the whole Drake thing. But I think that somebody did a dubstep cover of Three Little Birds by Bob Marley, and they took Bob Marley's voice and they changed it into Michael Jackson or something, and then they put it into dubstep. And
Sick.
it was fucking sick, dude. It's the coolest thing ever. Yeah. But you just got around the copyright infringement. It's on tonality with Bob Marley. It's every single, like, even down to the length of notes. That's all Bob Marley, but then it's just the tonality has gone now to, the voice has gone down to Michael Jackson.
So I guess you can do the arrangement, but you can't do the exact voice of the arrangement.
Yes, yeah, which is fucking weird.
Like, I've seen another good one is the SpongeBob Plankton like metal cover.
Oh yeah,
that's amazing.
So sick, dude.
Yeah.
What did you get into first? Were you into metal before everything else, or were you always into like hip hop? And then
definitely it was alternative rock and metal. So my brother introduced me to Avenged Sevenfold and Blink 182 and stuff like that.
Sick.
So I was very much into whatever he was listening to.
Right.
It was like Fall Out Boy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That emo kind of era thing. And then
Thanks for the memories.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And then I discovered, I think Kanye West was probably, and Lil Wayne, when Lil Wayne I believe was like at his best around that era, at least in my opinion. And those kind of, I think it was like 2008 to 2010. That was
That's
like my
a
favorite.
Millie era, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Dude, that was sick.
Yeah.
He was good. He was really good. And it's funny because he smoked so much fucking weed that he'll get shown his lyrics now and he won't even know that he did them because he freestyled everything. You know?
I've seen clips where he does that. He's like, that was me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who was his protege? Was it Drake?
It was Drake. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
That's why Drake has a tattoo of him on his body.
That's gay.
Yeah.
That's gay as shit.
Yeah.
Dude, what the fuck?
All the people that inspires him. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's kind of cool, I guess.
It's not just Lil Wayne.
It's just him with a throbbing cock.
Yeah.
It's pointing at his ass.
Yeah.
What did you think about, did you pay attention to the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef?
Not so much. I'm not very familiar. Like, I don't keep up with a lot of hip-hop
shit.
stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be all about it. Like, I used to be... Back in high school, I was downloading pretty much every unreleased song that came out on all these websites, blogs that would unrelease, like these attempts that artists would do drafts. I think that's what they were, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of unreleased stuff would come out on these websites.
They used to call them mixtapes.
Yeah, those as well, yeah.
Yeah.
But there just be so many weird leaks where I think some of them I'd listen to where it's like, let's say, like Neo does a lot of the like production for Rihanna and stuff like that. So there'd be like bits of him originally doing Umbrella that would get released. So I would hear like a lot of those kind of producers.
Whoa. Did you ever hear the thing about, who was it? I think it's Beyonce? So they took Beyonce and they dropped her voice by 2 octaves and it sounds exactly like, no, it wasn't Beyonce, it was Nicki Minaj. They took her voice and they dropped it by 2 octaves and it sounds exactly like Jay-Z. Same.
Oh, what?
Yeah. Like they've just like turned the octaves up.
I got to try this.
Yeah, dude. It's fucking weird. There's been a couple like that too, like Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber.
Damn.
That's the same person, bro. That's
It's just him running the whole industry.
Yeah.
Everyone's just a phase.
What did you obviously heard about the P. Diddy shit?
I've heard little bits of it, but I didn't go into it because some of the videos were just way too long for me to. My attention span is of a goldfish. So.
Yeah, you can only watch a black man get fucked for so long.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say that. That's not going to be in the podcast. But I did see after the P. Diddy stuff come out that Justin Bieber, and this is just hearsay, obviously, and I saw the video, but this is hearsay because you can't say this. There's a video of Justin Bieber kissing Jaden Smith. And they're like Jaden Smith is hugging Justin Bieber from the back and they're like rocking.
Oh, yeah, right.
And you're like, what I think P Diddy might have fucked him. Justin Bieber.
I've seen some posts about that as well.
Yeah, like he was only like 14. If that's real,
Yeah, that's fucked.
that's fucked up, dude. You never see that kind of shit in dubstep.
No, well, there is a lot of like predators that have been exposed.
Really?
But then there's also, on the other side, there's also been a lot of artists that have been accused of things without any proof. And then Twitter is such a cancel culture that, especially in like dubstep, there'll be artists where they just had a really toxic ex-girlfriend who just wanted to ruin their life. And then they lost their entire career because of it. And then you find out like a year later, the case is resolved. And then the guy posts all the examples of how it was twisted and it was fabricated and just to take him down. But it's too late now. The guy's already lost his career. He lost all his momentum and hype.
Yeah.
And
People have unfollowed and they have that mindset
stays
about
with
them.
them. Yeah.
100%. Because you just categorize them. Oh, predator. Don't have to think about him anymore. Yeah, it's true. Fuck, I didn't even... obviously, it's just people, right? It
happens all the time. Like I saw another one like 6 months ago where it just turns out this guy and his girlfriend were just having a fight, like just a everyday fight. And then she just took to social media to say that he beat her up and tried to throw her off a balcony. And that's like, turns out it was nothing like that at all. You know, it's just people, you know, I think also, you're also to blame in that scenario for dating somebody that is that crazy as well.
Yes.
Like you're also picking a partner that is that volatile.
Yeah. There's something about hot bitches, man. Like really hot bitches that are just fucking batshit crazy. Like I've been in a number of relationships that have just been like, it was all about the sex, you know, like there was just very little chemistry there other than I want to fuck.
I think we all go through that though.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
One of my friends, and I'm not going to name names because it's a legal case, but he is in one of those situations. So the situation is she's terrible with money, and I won't say too much because I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want her on my ass. But she's terrible with money, gambling addict. He tries to hide her money from her because when she gets drunk, she will spend all her money, and then he'll have to give her his money, right? And
He's enabling it.
Yeah, pretty much. So he took like a couple whatever money away from her. She goes to call the cops because she's drunk and she thinks that he's stealing her money. But he's like, no, I just don't want you to spend all your money. And she goes to call the cops. And he's like, what the fuck? He grabs her phone. He's just like throws it away. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is fucking ridiculous. And then she gets her phone back and she calls the cops. But now it was about assault, and the government and the police and everything see property damage towards women as assault these days. So him throwing the phone, he's now in a court case about it. So I won't name that, obviously, allegedly. I don't fucking know, but no names were named, so I feel good about saying that.
As a man, having the right partner is like everything.
It's everything.
I'm realizing now, I'm coming into my 30s now, that like having a partner that is on the same page as you about, you know, a lot of values and mindset. I think I've heard this in some other podcasts about its lifestyle, values, and vision. And I always knew about the values and lifestyle thing, like obviously being into the same things and, you know, having the same values towards like having kids or not, like obviously that should be aligned. But it was the vision thing that I never considered. The vision things as in like, where do you both want to be in 10 years from now kind of thing? Like, are you, like for me, the vision was always that I'm very much into working for myself thing, because like I've always believed that, you know, you could work a whole day's worth of work in an hour, but you're still only paid for just the hour. So in a job, like working for somebody, so your effort is meaningless in the long grand scheme of things. Like obviously you're promoted and there's like, you know, commission in some jobs, but I left working on that basis, and I always wanted to find a partner that has that same kind of perspective, that like, sure, having safety and security in like a job is important, but you know, the end game goal is to have that freedom, like we all want, to be able to do what we want to when we want to.
Yes.
You know? And fortunately, I found somebody that has those same visions and lifestyles and values. And I'm now realizing that it is possible, and it's not that I wasn't having too high expectations of my past partners. I was just looking in the wrong areas.
I think it's a man's job to look at the situation that you're in with your partner and say, ask yourself, is it beneficial to continue down the path of going against my vision and my rhetoric for happiness. Because if it is okay within yourself to do that, you're probably going to give up some things, and it's not going to be a positive sacrifice. But if you're happy to do that, go for it. But if you have a goal in mind and you want nothing more than to achieve that goal, why not have someone that's on board with that? And are you dismantling your beliefs by going against that? See, my current partner, she's not into the same things I'm into. Like, she's a female, but she's not going to be into like music production. And even if she is, it's probably be toxic if she was, because I'd be like, you have a taste and then I have a taste. So, but she lets me do the things that I want to do.
She supports you.
She supports me. Yeah. Almost too much, but sometimes it's like, and babe, I don't mean this fucking bad. There is a point of support where you can give your 2 cents, but you just need to let the person figure it out. Like you might have been in situations where you're like, I just need to sit and think on this one, and sometimes it's like, maybe try this, maybe try that, and you're like, whoa. Let me just, like I said, let me think about this. And I've come to, like, I've got a baby on the way. It's coming next month.
Oh yeah.
And she thinks she's in the mindset of like, why me? And like, I'm probably not going to put this in the podcast, but she thinks, why me, because of everything that I'm doing. But I'm like, no, I need a good woman to stand by me, and a good woman doesn't mean like fucking has to flaunt it on like Instagram and fucking be a hoe and like have to be sexually appealing 100% of the time. That's not what it's about. It's about having good morals and ethics that align with me and what I want to do. And I'm batshit crazy, dude. I need someone that's a little bit sturdy in their thoughts,
Definitely.
I like to do things like 100% of the time, all the time. Let's go.
I agree.
Yeah. So how long have you been with your partner?
Just about 5 months now.
5 months?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you meet her within the industry, or were you like, it's just a fucking random thing?
It was a random thing.
Oh, that's sick. I like that.
But like, I didn't want to find somebody that was associated with the industry, because then it's like, and I've had past partners that were, and the thing that I always had with that is I never really knew if they were with me just because of me or also because of what I was doing.
Right.
But I wanted somebody that just was with me for me, because I'm not going to be doing this thing forever. Like, what about when I'm like 70 and I'm just playing video games all day, being a pro gamer?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you have the brain for it, dude.
That's my plan.
Kids these
That's
days.
my plan, because I think they have a statistic where, don't quote me on this because I'm not in this area at all, but they did a study where majority of people who end up retiring just end up watching TV anyway. So I was like, well, why not just be an absolute gamer then rather than now? So I don't game as much because I'm just saving it for later.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be that mobile anyway.
Yeah.
There'll be like super VR stuff over then when it's like Ready Player One, where you'll be in the game.
Yeah, true. Yeah, have you heard about simulation theory?
Oh, that we're in a simulation.
That we're in a simulation. I was doing some reading this morning about simulation theory, and like Elon Musk, he says that we're more likely in a simulation than not.
Yeah.
And it made me think, if we're in a simulated experience, like there's one have you ever done mushrooms?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you do shrooms, and you would have experienced this too, you feel like there's a oneness to everything, right? There's a unity of energy, if you will. Like the universe, everything's just one, like universe, right? One. If that's one dude's consciousness and he's got a headset on and we're just like Age of Empires game, Sims of like an insane world that like is like 4K or 8K, everything's so crisp, and like you look different to me, but we're of the same thing. Like, what the fuck is that, right? How often, like in his world, he's created that. Now we're creating that in our world.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's starting at 8-bit, then it'll go to 16 and then 32, and then eventually they get to a simulated experience. Is this just like
a loop, I think.
A loop?
Yeah.
And if it is, what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, I don't think there is a purpose. I think the purpose is that we're just the loop. But something along the line obviously created the loop, because it's like if whatever created existence, something created that thing that created existence.
Yes. That's the theory behind people with atheism, they say if there is a God, who created God? Because God created everything. Well, who created him then?
Right.
And that's another whirlwind, because if you look at simulation theory, there is one dude that controls everything, or a series of people that control things. Do we look at them as God? Is it their actions?
I think so.
Or is it premeditated?
Well, it depends on the perception, because whatever universe that they're creating, from what their perspective is, who created them is the God, right?
Yes.
So it's like a never-ending thing that there's a God of a God of a God. But like you said, it's a loop, isn't it?
Well, in theory. It's not even a theory, it's a hypothesis.
Yeah, hypothetically.
You can't even...
You can't even quantify it.
You can't quantify it, no. No, which is strange. But to think in that way, I wonder if that's beneficial to me, or even to anybody thinking in that way. Are you trying to find as to why there's no purpose in thinking like that? Like, the guy that I was listening to was Rizwan Kirk. Rizwan Kirk is a video game company owner, and he keeps selling all these companies, and he's been getting into simulation theory.
Right.
And his theory behind it is if we can determine whether or not there is a simulation theory, we can understand the flaws and the benefits to having a simulation theory, and what we can do to, I guess, infinitely benefit ourselves.
I can't see there being a benefit in knowing, because even if, let's say we did have proof and evidence that we are in a simulation, how does that change your trajectory of your life?
God mode. You ever play God mode in, like, GTA?
I have, but you still wouldn't obtain that power.
Yes.
Like, you're limited by let's say we're NPCs. We're limited by being an NPC, right? In a game, let's say. So I don't think it benefits us, even if we did have evidence of it. It would just be like, oh, that's fucking weird that somebody's like manipulating our existence, essentially.
It kind of seems though, if we were just NPCs, these laws of nature, these scientific laws of nature, they should be bendable, and if so, they should have done that by now. If you know what I'm saying, like, but just turn the gravity off. We wouldn't know.
We wouldn't know that there has been bends in that, though.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because we're just the NPCs.
We're also just a speck of sand, apparently, across a bazillion galaxies that are also never ending. So it's like, maybe ours is just like, we've got a set of rules on this galaxy, and we just naturally abide by them.
It is strange to think that we're like, who the fuck was it that said it? I can't remember the name of the dude. Was it fucking Stephen Hawking? It might have been. He didn't move much. He quotes that we are the first line of species that is allowed to have the, what do you say, the information of the universe, and it's the universe looking on itself. To be this universe being able to perceive itself. That is human consciousness. Which is fucking weird, because if you, like you said, we're a speck of sand in a galaxy that's inside of a universe that's inside of a multiverse, if you will. What significance do we have? And why? Like, why shouldn't we just like go and fucking sit on a couch and play video games? Why even wait till you're 70? You know, like, what's the point?
Well, I think it's just about like, you can make life about whatever you want to, because like, we can create our own rules. Like, we can abide by whatever trajectory we want to go on, like, in our own world. We can create our own worlds, right?
Fuck you. Sorry, bro.
That's all good. I think we can just create our own worlds and be our own gods of our own lives, right? Like, we have the capabilities to manipulate things to what we want to move towards. If we want to have a more healthy life, we can move towards that in, obviously to a degree. With some limitations, we can move towards a certain career or passion or whatever. And we have that in our power to do those things. It's not like we're constricted to a couch being like, oh no, like, I only can play video games or watch TV all day.
Yes.
We have a choice still.
Yes. That's a good formality of thinking. Yeah. Free will is interesting, right? Because like, you wouldn't have been able to do the things that you've done with your career if you just had a regimented thought. You're like, this is the process. You wouldn't have like done the remixes. You wouldn't have taken that thought and then cut up somebody else's idea and then made it your own, Like, that's that rigidity of being able to or I guess anti-rigidity of being able to cut something up and make it into something even cooler than, maybe not cooler, but like, you know, just more you know?
Absolutely. I would also say I got some free will from my parents because, well, my brothers and sisters got to do a lot of hobbies growing up, and I didn't really get to do any at all. I was
What do you mean get to?
Well, I guess they just weren't really providing a lot of those kind of opportunities. They had a lot of other stuff going on. You know, they did the best they could with what they had going on at the time.
So were they more like, you figure it out type thing?
No, not at all. It was just kind of like, I guess they just weren't putting as much focus on me as the others. But it was like, you know, I was just putting more focus on myself, on, you know, keeping myself entertained with other things like video games and TV. And that was a lot of my childhood. But because of that, they gave me free will in terms of what I wanted to do with my career, because my brothers and sisters, they had to go to university. It was like, you're going or you're out of this house kind of thing.
Right.
And I got the opportunity to do what I want in this position, which I'm forever grateful for, because if I'd gone to university, I wouldn't have had the same line of thinking that I have now about doing things. Like, I have such an open mind about, you know, picking up a new skill and different ways of approaching it, as opposed to just going, oh, I have to read something and then implement it.
Yeah.
And that's how I got good at a lot of things, is by looking at things from a different perspective. So I did get free will to that context, which helped me out greatly.
Yeah, freedom of creation, right? I think that, like, I didn't do too well. Well, if you ask my parents, my mum would be like, fuck yeah, you did awesome, just because of other facets in life. But I dropped out quite early to start an apprenticeship, which I fucking hated, because it was just school in a different sense, right? It was just like hands-on schooling, and rather than just visual, learn something and say it again, motherfucker. Like, that's pretty much all it is. What I started doing straight out of school was I started playing in bands, and like, that was my little creative drive away from everything. But I realized if I'd stayed in school, I probably wouldn't have had the creative drive. I would have been like, oh, I'll do the homework, all that kind of stuff. And I would be a machine to the information that was provided and just like regurgitating it in a different way. But with the freedom of like leaving school, it was freedom in a sense, because I was allowed to make money and then also create music and art and all these other things, and I think there was the bonding of those two things, the freedom of having resources and the freedom to be able to do what you want, was fucking powerful, man. Are your brothers and sisters as creative as you?
They both did different creative things. I think my sister was very much into painting and stuff like that, but she didn't keep that going. But my brother was, and still is, in bands. Like, he's very much into jazz stuff now. I mean, he originally was into metal stuff, and I think he's made that progression over time into like more grunge stuff, but also like some jazz influence stuff as well. So I mean, he does all sorts of things now, but he's still doing his thing. But I think he wants to go full-time music now, that he's seen the other side, that, you know, he has had a taste of the music career.
Dude, I was in London in December, and I was just chilling with my partner, and we were just like seeing the sights around London, and we were coming back from a theatre show. We went and saw The Book of Mormon. It's the creatives of South Park.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember now.
It's fucking funny as fuck. We were coming back from that. We were having a great time, and we hit the London Underground, and we saw this dude, and he was carrying the biggest double bass case I'd ever seen in my life. Like, this thing was fucking huge, and he was like pulling it into like a little door on the Underground.
Crazy.
And I was like, "What do you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm in a jazz band." I'm like, "In London, that's pretty sick. Like, what kind of crowds are you playing to over here?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, not too big, like 500 a night." And I'm like, "Dude, you taking the train at 500 a night? Like what is that about?"
You? Yeah.
And he was like, "Dude, this is like my life." And you try driving around with a double bass in London. I'm like, that's a fucking good point. So like, there's like hectic artists just like
hustling,
hustling still, you know, and like, he could have a driver, you know, there's no point for him to be doing that, but it was just cool. And it was like a Wednesday fucking night, you know, he was
committed to his cause.
And he was like 40, dude, you know, like he was still getting after
it.
Are you continuing to make music under Axen?
I still am. I had like a rough last 2 years where I was just dealing with a lot of personal stuff, but I recently found the passion for it again.
Sick.
And also because I was focusing so much on building industry set to where it needed to be that I dropped everything I was doing, because like this is the third attempt at doing something like this. The last 2 attempts, I had some really bad business partners and I built these massive platforms and then lost everything, not by my choice, but just by circumstance. And so after those hard lessons of, you know, being less naive about who I trust and work with, and now circling back after 10 years to circle back with Brandon, it's like the best of everything, because, you know, he's so proficient in what he does in being behind operations and ads and traffic and stuff like that and optimizing things, while I became an elite at the coaching side of actually getting results. So, you know, when we combine forces on this, like everything works out perfectly. Like I don't have to even worry about his department. It's like he just has it. It's covered. It's perfect.
Question to do with dynamics in production. How many people are taking, you know, like wubs and stuff? How many people are multi-band sidechaining that to their drums?
Not many, because, well, it's something that I do.
Yeah.
But there's new tools now available that it makes it so much easier to do things like that.
Right.
So like there's a plugin called Shaperbox where you can create a shape to shape around, let's say, your drums or whatever, so your synths align with that exact shape of that kick, so you can get the perfect sidechain.
Okay.
And then you can also change it so then it's certain frequencies of that. So let's say the low end is being ducked harder than the top end, and that way you can get, because it's only the low end that you're wanting to sidechain anyway.
Yes.
The top end is generally what most people are hearing. You don't want it to hear it to be like ducking and moving around so much.
Yes. Yeah. There's a beautiful plugin that's on Patcher on FL Studio, and it's a multi-band sidechain, but they have presets for like different things. It's a lifesaver, dude.
Patcher is insane. Like FL is pretty nuts with that kind of stuff, because I believe you can custom build plugins out of Patcher.
Exactly. Yeah, you can have an infinite plugin. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. When Ableton, theirs is called Max Live Devices, so you can make like devices for the software.
Same as Patcher, kind of.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, same concept. And I've seen some, you know, there's a whole sound design thing going on short form content where I'll get fed these artists who aren't really big artists, but they just have insane sound design where they're making these plugins themselves that does all these insane things just by pressing a button. And let's say, well, I don't know, are you familiar with Mick Gordon's soundtrack on Doom, the video game?
Yeah,
the heavy metal one. Yeah. So like somebody made a recreation of his like process of how he feeds like static amp guitar signals into amplifiers and then back into the computer, and somebody just did it in Ableton where you just play a single note and it just turns into this mangled guitar sound that he has in his songs.
Yeah, sick.
So people exist out there where they're just so good at sound design that it's like inconceivable how good they are.
Yeah, there's a lot of sound designers at the moment that you hear sounds and you're like, oh, that's just that instrument, but you're like, that was created by a computer and that started off completely different to what it sounds like now.
Yeah.
That happens so often. Like metal bands, you know, like you never see a guitar amp on stage anymore. Did you know that? Like they don't play with guitar amps.
Where do they get the signal from?
The signal runs into like an audio.
Right.
Yeah, and it plays through a computer that goes to the PA system.
Right. Makes sense.
Which is fucking wild because you can directly live sidechain your guitars to your vocals.
True. Yeah. That's right. They do that stuff live now.
They do it live, yeah. I talked to, do you know I Killed the Prom Queen?
It's a band, right?
It's a band, right. Michael Crafter, the lead singer or lead screamer he was back in the day. He also did Confession, which is one of my favorite bands. I had him on the podcast and he was like, dude, you look at Slaughter to Prevail and Falling in Reverse. They don't have amps on stage. And I'm like, oh shit, they don't. Like, the lead guitarist, the Greb Father on I can't remember his fucking name. I just know him as the Greb Father.
Yeah.
He's the lead guitarist of Slaughter to Prevail.
Yeah.
He promotes his guitars, but he doesn't promote amplifiers. You're like, back in the day, you'd know like Dimebag Darrell from Pantera. He would stand by his Diesel or his
They're coloured, themed.
Like PV or whatever the fuck it is. But now these days, you like nobody's promoting.
You're very right about that. Yeah.
Nobody's promoting them. Man. What is your favorite oscillator?
Oscillator. I think a saw bass. Yeah, saw.
Nice. Yeah, that would fit perfectly for dubstep for sure.
I mean, whatever saw, square wave, saw wave, or whatever oscillator type of thing you're going to use. At the moment with sound design, because there's like an infinite amount of resources, I think where most of the golden moments now is in resampling. So for example, you can get a resample plugin, and I'm sure there's ones in FL as well, where you just hit record and then you can just start tweaking something in, whatever synth you're using. And then when you bring in the resampler, you can just start tweaking knobs, going through presets, and it will just turn a basic sound into some behemoth crazy sound that you couldn't possibly make like just manually. There's no way, because it's so randomized. And that's where most of like the interesting stuff is coming from now. It's not just making like a synth patch. It's just the post-processing from that. Because you'll listen to most artists when they deconstruct their songs, it will be a basic sine wave or a basic saw, but they put so much processing on it, it just sounds like this wall of crazy sound that's coming out of this. And they just did that randomized. So you can imagine how much different types of ideas somebody can come up with just by hitting record and mangling a sound. Yeah,
100%. There's so many after effects now as well. Jason Joshua, the guy that I was telling you about before, he has a sound, and it's a mastering sound, his tonality to his final products, and it seems to be he can capture like his reverbs, his delays, all that kind of stuff, all of his I don't even know how you call it, the accessory sounds, and they're so prominent but also very gentle and delicate. And he brought out he did a collaboration with Cradle, and Cradle's this top of the range software development company. They took his sound and they put it into a mastering plugin. They called it the God Particle. It is fucking hectic.
What does it do?
I don't even know how to explain. I'll show you after. But it's a mastering plugin, so it's like it brings all your sounds up to master level, and you can choose like whether you want to bring the bass out or the mid out or the treble out. You can limit it as well, but it has this Galaxy intensifier knob, and it like brings out everything. It's fucking hectic.
Yeah, that's where software's coming now, where it's becoming so much easier to get good as a producer, and that's why with Industry Set we focus more on how do we optimize the person, not the software necessarily? Because like nowadays you can buy a piece of software that literally, like you just explained, like mix and masters it almost for you, like almost to like a professional standard. And that's why everybody in their ankle is becoming a producer. It's so oversaturated. Everyone is figuring out, oh my God, you can make a career out of this. And so we have a big focus on just seeing how we can optimize somebody's like workflow and them being like a more efficient person overall. So let's say, like in production, if you want to improve, most people, what they do is they go to like a feedback service or sending music to a friend or other better producer to say, hey, what do you think of this? How do I improve it? And often when we're giving feedback, and this comes across any type of art form, feedback is just generally your opinion. Like, because what you think about a piece of art compared to what I think is going to be quite different, likely, right? And so that's just an opinion. So you can't really give accurate analysis on things if it's just an opinion, because what I say to a student might be different to another coach. So instead, what I do with Industry Set is we get somebody to do recreations of already professional songs, like word for word, as close as possible to, let's say I get them to do a volume of 5 build-ups as close as possible to these 5 artists that influence their sound. They're trying to get as close as possible to the reference. And so then I can A/B between the reference and what they did, and I can look for what was missing from what they tried to do and what they were trying to get. So I can fill in the gaps. And so that's going to be the most accurate representation of where somebody's quality is, because I can look for recurring problems. Because if somebody submitted just one song and had all these problems, well, that might have just been a bad week for them. But if I'm doing 5 in a row of just parts of their production, I can look for recurring problems. If whatever those recurring problems are, that's likely the thing that we need to teach them.
That's a good point, because even if you're mixing a track or creating a track, a lot of the time when you come back to that track, say if you've been working on it in an afternoon, and you're like, okay, that's enough for today, let me have a listen tomorrow. It's fucking dog shit, dude. It's so bad. But sometimes it's fantastic, you know, like it comes down to like, what is your procedure? Have you got a procedure? And you build that over time. But if you guys are accelerating that, that is fucking phenomenal, because it took me, the best part of 3 years during the height of COVID and then having a lot of free time after that to work that shit out myself. And if I had somebody like you guys on my team, I'd be loving life right now.
Absolutely. I went through the same thing. I was probably doing it for 10 years before I figured out, oh, that's how you do that thing. And I was like, well, if only I had swallowed my pride and just asked somebody for help, I would have been leaps beyond where I was.
Yeah.
Because often a lot of the things that were holding me back were just simple things I could have asked the pro and they would have given me the thing. But I had the pride of, I want to be able to say I did it by myself. But at the end of the day, no one really gives a fuck how you did it. Like, as long as you did it, like, you know, legit, and you gave it your all.
But I think learning it in your own way gives you, I guess, the leverage to have your idol say your song is the best produced track he's heard.
No, you're absolutely right. It definitely, you come with like your own ways of doing things,
Yes.
sure. But I think it's more the taste that you have, because like your taste, anybody can get really good, but it's the taste that separates you from everybody else.
Yes.
When it comes to creative work, it's like me or you could pick up a skill set and we could be just as good as each other in a creative skill set, but we'd both have different outcomes.
Yeah.
Because it'd be based on our taste, not our skill set, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The objectivity of music production is, does it sound good? And that is a subjective notion.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
Which
Absolutely.
is so weird. It's one of those arts that, like, if you were looking at a painting, you could be like, that's dog shit, because it just... Have you seen those ones on like TikTok where they just spin something?
Yeah,
and you're like,
they just throw some paint on some branches and that's a $1 million painting.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck is that? But music's one of those things that, like, you can tell if somebody's put time into that. Like, there's a genuine feeling to it, just like a Picasso. Like, you can tell the Sistine Chapel. Like, you look up and you're like, okay, this took a few years. You know, like there's a creation to the artist rather than just the art. And I think if you guys are promoting, and you guys are promoting to create the artist, not just the art, that's very important, because it gives originality, it gives individuality, and it sets people apart from others. And when you're in a market that's so completely flooded, it's so easy to sound like A, B, or C. Why not try and be Z? Why not have a help up so you can jump to that next level and attain a different sound, a different way of doing things, have an understanding of the fundamentals so you can then branch out and you can do the different things. I think a lot of people have that idea in the beginning where they're like, let me do this first, and I'm going to sound like this guy, I'm going to sound like this lady, I'm going to sound like this band. But if you already know what you want to sound like, why not get a little bit of help? You know? Why not get to that level and then branch out on creativity? Or if you already have a feeling of what you want to do, what's the difficulty in asking for a little bit of help?
There's definitely a lot of uncertainty people have of asking for help online, especially when it's something paid, because automatically someone goes, oh, it's paid, it's something to do with marketing, oh, it's a scam. Like, in anything, goes across like any kind of service, people often their first thing is like, oh, is this going to give me a return on my investment?
Yeah.
How's it going to prove that? Blah, blah. And that's why we just focus on getting really good results, because like you could have the best marketing for any business, but the one thing that just shows that something does the thing is just showing the results.
Yeah.
So we just get really, really good results for people. We do it in a realistic manner. So if somebody comes to us and applies and makes an application of like, they have these certain goals and, they present their music to us, and I review that, they're not a good fit because maybe they don't have the right motivators, maybe they don't have the right resources, like they don't have a good computer, or they don't have a computer, or they haven't even started production, then I just pivot them to another department, maybe like, go to YouTube and learn for free for a bit. Because if somebody, like, you could teach somebody with the best techniques and the best education in the world, but if they don't have the right motivators and mindset and diligence to do the thing, then there's no helping some people. Like, some people also aren't open to change. Like, they're not open to learning a different perspective on things. Like, they want to do it their way and like, yeah, help me, but I still want to do it my way.
Yeah.
And those are often the people we can't help.
Yes. Yeah, if you're going to be a student in one thing, you have to be a student in everything. And I learned that real quick. And I think everybody does. If you're trying to go for something, you need to be a student. Like, it's all well and good, like just trying to be a sponge or whatever, you know, to all of the information. But being a student isn't just being, you know, a recipient of the information. It's to ask questions, to be curious, to go deeper into what you're learning. I think that's the most important part about being a student, is being curious. Like, what does this lead to? Why are we learning this? You know, that's important.
Absolutely. And I believe in trying to be a forever student. I've been listening to this book on Stoicism by, I forgot his name, but he writes a lot of Stoic books about...
Ryan Holiday?
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I'm listening to his book at the moment, Ego's Your Enemy, and he was talking about...
Oh, fantastic book.
You should always be a student, because the moment that you put yourself out of not needing to know anymore, then all of a sudden you start developing this ego that I don't need any more information. But it's really by being forever a student is how you become great. And I've always been doing a lot of these things, but I didn't realize like there's an actual like answer to why that is the best way of doing it. And books like that have really been helping me a lot, because I often stress about things that I can't control, and Stoicism is about not worrying about the things that you can't control.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome, right? Being a Stoic is like one of the things that I have had many conversations with one of my, when I used to sell real estate, I had a running buddy, and now he's just sold he shut down his currency that he was creating. Wild story, I'll tell you after the podcast, but he comes in and he always has like this fresh perspective, because he lives in these different countries. He'll move every 6 months and he'll learn something stoic about the way the people live in that country. And he's always building. He's a nomad, a digital nomad. That's what they call him. His name's Samuel McIntyre. The guy is fucking phenomenal with the way he thinks. And yeah, the last podcast that we did, it wasn't even a podcast. We went and got a shisha afterwards. And he was asking me, because I had 11 surgeries last year. It was a rough time in my life. And I was listening to doctors, and he was like, how long before you stopped listening to authority and started listening to yourself? I was like, about 10 surgeries. And he was like, and how quickly did you recover after you started listening to yourself? I was like, immediately. And he's like, yeah, who's a dum-dum? I was like, yeah.
That's amazing. I was actually going to ask you about that, because I recall seeing about how you had that autoimmune disease and you just worked out your own way of bypassing everything.
Yeah.
And just doing it your own and fixing it.
Yeah.
It must have felt so, like, obviously the whole lead up to that scenario was insane, but it must have been such a big relief to not only do it, but do it your way.
Well, I don't know if you're like a big conspiracy head or whatnot. But I'm like, nobody in my entire family has any sign of this autoimmune disease. I get stomach pains in 2022. I go into the hospital. They say nothing's wrong. I was taking Tongat Ali at that time, which is a testosterone increasing root from Indonesia, and they put it down to, oh, well, you must have taken a bad batch of that. You've got a stomach issue. Just stop taking it, see what happens. I was like, okay, let me try that. And then I go home. I stop taking it. I start doing the carnivore diet. The elimination diet doesn't let my body react to anything for a long time. So I was sweet for like 6 months. And then the start of 2023, after a breakup, and there was a lot of other stresses in my life, my stomach issues started coming back, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And it started really, really hurting. And then I would like be on the toilet for like 11 hours a day and nothing coming out. I was like completely constipated. And then this one day I got up and the blood was just fucking all over the toilet bowl. And I was like, that can't be fucking good.
Fuck.
So I went into hospital, and my colon, which this is fucking disgusting, but it was growing into my muscles. It's what's known as fistulating. So if you get an ulcer and it creates a pus pool on the outside of the organ, it will find its own way to drain. So it'll literally go through your muscle through to your skin, and it'll just continue draining. So it's called fistulating. the fistulating Crohn's disease or fistulating ulcerative colitis. But the doctors I was like, oh, so is it ulcerative colitis or is it Crohn's disease? Because Crohn's disease is from tongue to anus inflammation.
Right.
But they were like, no, you've only got it in this one section, but it'll only fistulate if it's Crohn's. So we don't know what it is.
Right.
And that made me think, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So I went through a number of these incision and drainages. So they would cut me open and drain out the fluid that was in there, because I had like 4 of these going off. And I had my first vaccine in 2022. 4 weeks later, I had my first stomach pain.
Right.
My second vaccine was no, that was my last vaccine. Have you ever heard of a cytostorm? I've done this research now. A cytostorm is basically when you have a spike protein or something that triggers an immune response. So when you had the COVID jab, your immune system was flooded with spike protein, which basically was like they say is increasing your immunity. But it basically just tells your immune system to switch the fuck on. And your immune systems are like, why? Like, what's going on? Like, why do we need to turn on the immune system? The immune system started attacking me. So my own immune system started attacking me. And it did it through mucus flesh or mucus lining. On the inside of the colon, there's a mucus lining. And that's so shit doesn't get stuck to the fucking colon, right? Now, I used to be a bodybuilder. I'll preface this with, I used to be a bodybuilder, and I know a lot about compounds that are illegal, and I know compounds that are completely legal but just not talked about because you can't patent them because they are naturally occurring. Now, pentadecapeptide BPC-157, which is body protection compound 157, is one of the best ways you can recover from muscle injuries, tears, or anything. If you have, say, a tear in your shoulder or in your bicep or in your pectoral, you inject it locally into that spot, and within 2 weeks, it's completely gone. And I was thinking, like, after having like 6 of these surgeries, incision and drainage, it was just like ongoing. Like, when does this end? Oh, they're like, oh, we'll put you on infliximab or something like that, which is a $30,000. They were trying to hype up how much it was going to cost the surgeons and to give me this, and they were like, it's $30,000 a year, but the government pays for it. You should really do it. And I was like, am I a dollar figure? Like, I heard a doctor one time, and it was in the middle of the night, say to a trainee nurse, she asked him, is this patient going in for hospital? And he goes, no, he's not sick enough yet. What? And he goes, like, I remember distinctly the thought that I had was there's a need for a patient to be sick so they can make money. You can't make money off someone who's dead or healthy, right? They need to be sick. And when he said that, I was like, oh shit. So it took me a while to listen to myself, but this one time I was with my current partner laying on the bed, and I just had like this severe attack. So when the fistula breaches skin, it's like pushing through nerves, and it's the most horrific. Like, morphine doesn't even mask it.
Just a question to interrupt you there.
Go for it.
Were you getting like internal bleeding from that?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah. I mean, I've seen my current partner. She went into hospital for internal bleeding. It was like she had some like ovarian cyst burst, and that happens quite frequently with women, but it's not often that they bleed internally. I've never seen somebody in so much pain like that, so I understand. I can imagine what you were going through, and that was going on for like what? How many months or years?
About 16 months.
Jesus Christ.
So, does your partner have endometriosis?
No, it's not related. It was just
All right, lucky, because there has been just before I continue, there has been an increase of 450% of Crohn's or ulcerative colitis cases or endometriosis, which is the I like to think of it, this is the same thing. It's literally the uterus fistulating out into the surrounding areas. Yeah. And if you're listening to this, please, for the love of fucking Christ, go and buy some BPC 157. You will fucking save your life. It's a mucus. So I did this. I'll put the study up on the screen right fucking now. And you'll read that they took 100 mice and 100 humans that had ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. They gave something to the rats or the mice to give them this. They gave the BPC 157 to all 200 subjects. No, there was actually 400 subjects, and one was one group of 100 mice and 100 humans got BPC 157, and double-blind placebo study, they gave a placebo to the other 200 subjects.
Yep.
100%, 200 units was a success rate.
Damn.
For BP 157.
What was the disease that it was used for?
So ulcerating mucus lining flesh, which is like inside the colon, inside the uterus, all
like
of
their
these.
version of that, essentially.
Yeah. So BPC 157 is a peptide
Yep.
that is mainly used in just bodybuilding. So I had this shit in my fucking fridge, dude, and I was like, I wonder, like, let me just Google and see if there's a PDF of like some use case where a scientist has tried BPC 157 on like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or something like that. And it was the first fucking one that came up, and it was in Dagestan. And like Russians were like, fuck yeah, let's try this. Dagestanians. They were like, let's try this. And then they did it. And I had this like, fuck you moment. I was like, fuck you. You're trying to turn my immune system off. Where if you just cured the ulcers and got rid of the ulcers, I'd heal. You wouldn't have had to cut me open all these times. They were trying to say your body is fistulating because your immune system's trying to get rid of the pus. But it's not. It was the pus trying to get out. Like my body was trying to dispel the pus.
Yeah.
It wasn't my immune system that was doing that. You're trying to turn that off. They gave me what's that fucking shit called? They gave me an immune suppressant. I can't remember what.
Some kind of steroid thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a steroid that turned off my immune system, and then I started getting infections. So, like, there was a part of my immune system that was stopping the infection.
Was it Solon 1 or something? Sol 1 or something?
It started with an S.
Yeah, SOLONE.
Some shit like that.
Yeah, I actually took that for not something as hectic as that. It was more something that I thought what I was dealing was extreme allergies. I'll let you finish your story first because I've got another whole thing.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started taking this stuff. I bought an oral compound and I started injecting locally. Within 2 weeks, the wounds had healed up, which were my previous surgery wounds that were not healing up. They were just like, they just healed up instantly, which was like, whoa. So I decided to change hospitals. I went to a new surgeon and I said, look, you might have the file already of what I've been through, but I just want a colonoscopy. I just want you to check. And like, they booked me for a month down the line, and I fucking took this shit like it was candy. I was eating it every day. I went through 90 caps of it and was 500 milligrams per cap, or micrograms per cap. And so I was having maybe like 500 micrograms locally every day. And then, because it was so severe, I was just trying to do as much as I could. And I went through 90 caps after these 45 days or whatever. And we went and did a colonoscopy. And the surgeon came out with the results, and it was Dr. Jacobs at Murdoch Hospital. Shout out to that dude. You're a fucking legend. He goes, dude, you don't have ulcerative colitis. You don't have Crohn's. You have like some of the best looking colon tissue that I've seen. And I was like, I just fucking cured Crohn's disease.
How long were you taking the BPC for?
About 40 days.
So just over a month.
But I felt good after 2 weeks. Like I could walk again.
Wow.
Which was like...
That's wild.
Wild, dude. And then I had my final surgery, which led into another story. But tell me about your allergies. What happened?
Yeah, so I was on Zyrtec, which is like an antihistamine for most of my life because I'm allergic to dust, which is also everywhere, like dust mites. Yeah, I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid, and then I found out I was allergic to dust, so I won't be any tomb diving. Yeah, none of that. But I ended up coming off Zyrtec after using it for 10 years because it's not something you should be using daily, which is what I was doing. It's meant to be like a one-off thing. Anyways, I came off it, and the withdrawals that I had from it was like a tingling, kind of crawling feeling. And the thing was that stayed with me for many years up until like now. And the feeling of what I had was I thought it was dust related. Like I literally thought I had dust mites crawling on me, and that maybe stopping the medication had given me a reversal of it. And when I even took antihistamines, it wouldn't remove it. And so I got through this period of my life where it just kept getting worse and worse. And I kept thinking, oh my God, like, how is my allergy so bad? And it got to a point where, a couple of years ago, I was cleaning my sheets like every day because I thought that there was dust mites on me and I couldn't go to sleep at night because I'd have this feeling of crawling on me. It's just impossible to sleep like that. And I kept just assuming it's dust mites. And then eventually, only like last maybe 6 months ago, I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to get desensitized because I think this is actually something that my brain has created, and it's like some kind of OCD thing, because anytime that something wasn't done a certain way or it wasn't in routine, that would trigger an immune response in my body. And I wouldn't believe that it was something that my brain created because I was like, there's no way that physical sensation would feel that real. It can't be. And I just believed with so much conviction that it was allergic reaction and then I started getting desensitized, and I was like, well, I'm getting desensitized, so it can't be that. Like I'm trying to reprogram my brain to realize that is not that. Mm-hmm. And then when I found out that it's actually a type of OCD, which is called contamination OCD, which is the fear of, some people have like germ fears where they have to keep washing their hands and stuff. Yeah. So this is similar that I had created in my head. And it turns out the way to actually combat OCD is to just do the thing you're trying not to do. So all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm going to be messy as fuck. I was throwing shirts on the floor, then wearing them, like not changing my sheets for 2-3 weeks, and like, not washing things.
Yeah, you became a dude.
Yeah, exactly. I stopped being so like perfectionist about cleaning things. Because like I grew up in a household with my parents where they were very like OCD clean. Yeah. And I think that's kind of translated. And it's a good habit to have, be clean generally for sure. But I think I just took it to a whole nother level with the allergy assumption. But now that I have had a supportive partner who's just been like, you're an idiot, it can't be that. Like, that's not what dust allergies do to you. I only needed that kind of perspective and a little bit more push, and I was able to like get my mind right. So now I can just do these things without having to be constricted by such a burdening thing that I've been dealing with for so many years.
Right. But
they put me on that Solon 1 stuff. It was just a tablet, and they only gave me a couple.
How dare they?
But it was just, and it does eliminate your immune system, I believe, I believe it was so then they could prove that it's not allergic reaction, because when I did take it, I still was getting that symptom. So that eliminated it, but I still didn't believe them. It wasn't until I got desensitized, I started doing that process, that I was like, okay, it's definitely not that. Right.
There was a dude in, I think it was the 1800s in America, and they had told him that it was one of the wars. I can't remember what it was. It might have been Civil War. Could have been earlier than that. I don't fucking know. But there was a guy who was, he had it in his head that he was ready to die. And he told himself every day for 7 days that, oh, I'm dying. No, I'm dying. Like, he had it in his head that he had a chronic illness. 7 days later, he died. He was hydrated. He had water by his bed, and he had food. He just kept telling himself he was dying.
Was it that he believed it, or was he trying to believe that he was dying?
No, he believed that he was dying.
He had conviction that he was.
Yeah, and his body killed himself.
Yeah.
Which is, or maybe it was his mind that killed his body. Like, oh, you're ready to go. Like, that is I think that's pretty much what happened with me. Like, you know how like when they say when there's white space on your calendar, the devil will creep in? I think it's the same thing with stress.
Absolutely.
I think if you're
100%.
stressed 100%, you'll find a way to fuck yourself up, or the body will at least.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say with your story that I totally agree with the jab stuff, that I think it's not necessarily the jab, but I think the jab creates so much stress on the immune system that it's created these worlds of problems with people. because there's so much correlation that, like, I'm no like expert or anything on this. It's just, you know, from things that I've heard from friends who have had similar experiences, or they've, you know, lost, like a friend of a friend lost her, believe she was pregnant, and then the kid that was, you know, in the womb died after she got injected, like a week after. So like there's things like that happening. And I think like autoimmune diseases especially, I think they come a lot from the body stress, like people holding on to stress. And I truly believe that my mum had the autoimmune disease that she had because she never expressed any of her, like, she held all the stress in, like all the time. She's very stoic, but not in the right way, in the way that she would just keep it in there. So like even when her mum passed, she didn't bat a tear, like she just held it in. And so I think her holding in so much of that, because we store a lot of our stress and trauma in like our
muscle tissue, right?
Yeah, it's in our hips and our jaw. And you know, the biggest thing that I learned from hardship, going through a similar thing like you did, where it's like, you know, your world's ending basically, that fighting dysregulation is like the biggest thing that I think most people should, like, I think everyone should have this skill set of being able to regulate. Like basic regulation is, you know, going for walks, and, you know, obviously like stuff like gym and yoga is like basic level regulation. But like there's a lot of stuff that I tried to look into because I was at a point where I felt like I had zero dopamine, zero serotonin, zero nothing. Like I felt like I was just a husk of a being.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out, how do I, you know, get back to baseline? And one of the things, out of everything I did, I went to psychology, I went to psychiatrists, I went to everything to try and get me back to a normal level. Literally everything from diets, like you did as well, to, you know, different stress relief things. And the one thing that helped me the most is it was more like it's a type of yoga. I forget what it's fucking called, but it's
Kundalini.
No, it's similar to that.
Transcendental.
No, it's let me look it up real quick.
Go for it. Yeah, yoga's fucking amazing, dude. There's so many benefits to stretching the body out. I've been lacking like a motherfucker on yoga.
Somatic exercises. So I came across this course that I bought on a whim, and I was like, oh, I've tried everything, I'll try this as well. And I'd seen a lot of, you know, those gurus talking about these kind of trauma releases and stuff. And I was like, on a whim, I'll buy this course, whatever. And there was a type of, it's like a type of like yoga positions and stuff. And it let like your entire like hips kind of get to a point where they just start shaking uncontrollably. And so if you're somebody that really struggles to just let out things that you're sitting on, that's like you're holding in your chest. And oftentimes when we get dysregulated, it's the same feeling of like, oh, I feel burnt out. Like I feel like I'm dying, and I feel like, well, not dying, but you feel like you're so lumbered with stress that you feel trapped, like that kind of feeling. And I see so many people go through it. And whenever I've gone through that, even now, like, you know, everybody goes through it constantly, like every, you know, couple of months, something bad will come up and we have to deal with it. And I find that kind of regulation worked the best, because I could literally pinpoint what I was feeling and just get it out. And then I could, you know, I felt shitty for the rest of the day, but the next day I was like, oh wow, I feel like all that heaviness, that weight is gone. So I'd highly recommend anybody just looking into regulation work like that, because I mean, yoga is another good one, or even just daily walks are good, because, you know, it's good talking to people. It definitely is. Like psychologists are great to talk to, but it doesn't ever really resolve the thing you're holding on to. Like you just get solutions to, like, you know, protocols on how to work around things and maintain things.
Yes. I think it was Patrice O'Neill. He said, why would I want to talk to somebody about my problems? I'm here to fucking get rid of them, which is like, it makes sense. Like I went to it's a funny story. I was 21 and I was like seeing this girl, and I was like, man, I fucking, like, she was going on a Kentucky tour, and I was like, she ain't gonna cheat on me. She's 21, going on a Kentucky tour, and I was like so stressed about it, because I was like, no, I just got in this beautiful relationship, and I thought I was, you know, 21, fucking dumb, full of cum, you know, that kind of shit. And I was having a rough time, and I went and saw a psychologist, and the lady said to me, she's like, at a percentage level of trust, 100% being she's not going to cheat on, or she will cheat on you, and 0% being she's not going to cheat on you, at what percentage do you think she's going to cheat on you? I was like, 5%. She ain't going to cheat. Like, 5%. Like, she's like, well, why worry about the 5% if you have 95%? And I was like, that's awesome. A week later, she cheated on me. I was like,
shit, yeah.
That's just a load of bullshit.
It's also just the age thing. I feel like nobody really knows who they are until they're at least 25.
Yeah. I think at that point in my life too, and it was quite cool that I did this when I was young, I went really dark, like, in my thoughts, but I also went, I'm not trusting any process that I can't control from now on. I'm just gonna, if I can't control it, it's just gonna happen the way it happens. And if I have an input, like there's this thing that Buddhists, and it was Mahatma Gandhi said, if you can change something about a situation, why worry about it? Because you can change it. But if you can't change anything about that situation, why worry about it? Because you can't change it anyway.
Yeah.
So they both end up at why worry about it.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh shit. And even to this day, I still have to reflect on just that notion, because you can just go about your life every fucking day about how it's this way, this is how it is, da 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 da, and then something happens, and you're like, oh fuck, I wasn't ready for this, I wasn't prepared. And then I look back at, Mahatma Gandhi going, hey, why worry anyway? And I'm like, fuck you got me again. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on the same page.
That overheated on me. Do you have anything else to say? I think we covered.
I think we're pretty good.
Yeah,
it's a lot of good topics. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I definitely feel like at the start I was like rambling way too hard. So feel free to cut that first section.
No, I leave it in. Fuck
I just went for like 7 minutes. I was like, oh wait, I haven't even let him talk yet. Shit, it's his podcast. What am I doing?
No, I like to keep you guys going sometimes. Like it gives me information to work off of as well. Yeah. You were one of the few that actually sends through some topics, which kind of like it had me thinking prior, and I was like,
awesome.
I only have a few questions though. So now I need questions about questions. So that ramble that I started off asking you and then you kept going. There wasn't a ramble, by the way. It was just you talking and explaining.
I like how you tied things back to certain things, because you went like really broad to like, talking about simulation, and then you somehow tied it back to like the current situation topics. Yeah, I really like how you did that.
Yeah, well, it's all about the chat, dude. Yeah, we try and keep it circular if we can. Keep it like there's a gravity to a conversation.
Absolutely,
there definitely is. And if you can, for my listeners at least, I like to be as stoic as I can, but also be as relative to the situations of just human. Yeah, the human degree. Sometimes it fucks me though, because I start to think a little too deep, and I'm like, that's completely off topic.
No, I love that you were able to make it all cohesive.
Yeah,
because there was a moment where I was like, oh no, this is going in a trajectory that I have zero knowledge about. Like, what if it keeps going? But then you were somehow able to like tie it back in smoothly, and I was like, oh wow, that was impressive. So nice work. Yeah,
thank you, sir. Before I go, I'm not on camera anymore, just you. What are your 5 top artists coming up at the moment in Perth? Or just in Australia, if you will. Or just fucking any.
My first client for Industry Set Neotech, he's just been booked for Lost Lands, which is a huge dubstep festival in the States.
Hectic.
So it's like really hard to get over to the States from Australia, because you need to have like an incredible amount of proof that you can get through the visa process. Like it's really difficult to get through. And another client, Bad Void, he's now touring in the States, in America, like full time as well. A lot of the other, like, honestly, I'm also keeping eyes on my own clients, to be honest. So, I mean, I sound a bit like selfish about that, but most of my focus is just there. So, I mean, also props to Don Darko and Blackout, who are, doing their thing in Europe, and it's well deserved. And another bunch of artists in Perth that I really value, and I think they deserve all the success in the world, is Echo and Sidetrack, because like they've been doing it for a very long time, and they deserve every part of success that they're getting right now, because like they've worked so hard to get to where they are, and they're finally getting like the proper recognition they deserve.
Sick. Do you keep in your eyes on like the house scene in Perth at all as well?
I used to be a huge house head. Like back when I was like going Amber and like Movement and stuff like that, I was just all into tech house and progressive house and stuff like that. But I'm completely off the rails now with what's going on in the local scene. I couldn't care less of what's happening there, honestly, because you end up realizing there's such a bigger world out there. millions of people all trying to do the same thing.
Everybody niches out in their own little what they like, and
Yeah.
it is a very subjective thing. All right, let's wrap it up, dude.
Perfect.
Take me home, I wanna know if you're down, ready to go. Wanna fly away with you, float away, fly